You're listening to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast covering the wild world of college football. On tap for today are hot takes, controversy, and analysis on your favorite team. Here's your host, Hampton Sipper, in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and I've got Mr. Graham Haney joining me tonight to talk a little Week 9 college football action. Unfortunately, Chase couldn't make it again this week, but we're hoping and begging and pleading that he'll make it next week, as we hopefully are on the precipice of an outstanding weekend of college football in Week 10, and that is going to be the primary thing that we talk about here today. But before we kind of dive into briefly recapping Week 9 and looking ahead to Week 10, quick programming reminders. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already at the Pigskin Cafe. Leave us a like on this video, leave us a comment, and hit that notification bell. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. We love interacting with you all on there, and we appreciate all the support throughout the year, and we just enjoy talking college football and enjoy hearing from you guys. So with that out of the way, Graham, we're going to talk about Week 10. We're going to talk about the big Alabama-LSU matchup, Georgia-Mizzou, battle of SEC East foes. We're going to talk about Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State in the Battle of Bedlam, USC, Washington. I mean, we've got some heavy-hitting games this week. But before we look ahead, let's look back really quickly. I know we usually put out a show on Tuesday, but with me coming back from a trip from Charlotte, and honestly just not a whole lot happening in Week 9, we thought we could condense our Week 9 recap into about a 5 to 10 minute segment and then look ahead to Week 10. So quickly, I'm going to give a few reactions, few takeaways that I had from Week 9. Obviously, the major one, Oklahoma going down to Kansas. What a win for Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Big win for that program. I think their first, they broke like a 0-19 streak, I think, against Oklahoma. I mean, that was like one of the bigger wins in their program's history, especially in recent memory. They kind of won, scored the go-ahead touchdown with a minute left and held on to take down Oklahoma. Now Oklahoma has less margin for error, and what that kind of means now is going into, people after they beat Texas, a lot of people penciled them in for the Big 12 championship. Now it's not so sure, especially with the game that they have upcoming this weekend in Stillwater, Oklahoma, against their rival Oklahoma State. So things got a little bit more dicey for them. Their margin of error is gone, and that's 2 weeks in a row that they've struggled. They struggled against UCF the week prior. Really should have lost that game, or had a chance to. I'm not going to say they should have lost it, but they had a really good chance of losing. And then Kansas goes and does it to them this week. So big win for Lance Leipold and that program. The other takeaway that I had is North Carolina, man. We jinxed them. Mm-hmm. Called them college football playoff contenders. Real ACC championship vibes from them after beating Miami. And what have they done? They lost to Virginia. Now they've lost to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech rushed for like 200 yards in the fourth quarter alone. Just poor performance. I think Gene Chizik now owes me an apology. I apologize to him. He needs to apologize to me now because that defense is stinky Bo Dinky right now. They cannot stop a leaky faucet. And now they're out of the college football playoff picture. They got 2 losses. And I would like to say, the rest of your schedule is pretty manageable. But they've got Duke upcoming, and they've got a couple other, I think NC State is another team on the rest of their schedule. But with the way they played the past 2 weeks, there's no guarantee that they're going to get the job done. Very disappointed with that team, with that program. And I know Mac Brown's not in danger of losing his job, but everything was out in front of them. And in 2 weeks, it shows you how quickly things can change in the world of college football because now they're on the outside looking in when it comes to the college football playoff picture. So those were a few takeaways that I had, Graham. Obviously, Georgia rolled against Florida. Not that either, I think both of us predicted a closer affair between the two, but I don't think either one of us were shocked that Georgia pounded a significantly talent inferior team in Florida. But give me some of your main takeaways from the weekend, just really quickly before we kind of move in to previewing stacked Week 10 slate.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. I mean, we talked about it, last week, Georgia and Florida. We thought it would be a tough game, but man, Georgia really just took control early and just held on for the whole game. Looking at the rest of the schedule, I think also want to point out our predictions were pretty accurate for the Texas
Tell
game
them, baby. Yes, sir.
and the Oregon game. I think that uh, Oregon really showed out and played very well. Going to Salt Lake City playing Utah, I thought that was a great win by Oregon. Um, played really well, and the defense for Oregon really stood up and made a big statement. Texas winning big, but that was like we talked about. That was not a surprise at all. The backup quarterback was it was Malik Murphy. I think that there was kind of some question marks of what kind of talent he had, but I know I said it last week that this BYU team was not anywhere close to what Texas was, so the quarterback play was not going to matter a whole lot. Another takeaway: Florida State looked really good this week. I think that was a sense of
Yeah, they did.
they were in control, and I think that's something that in weeks past, Florida State's been playing to the level of their competition, and this was kind of the first week in a while that we haven't seen them do that. They really played well against an inferior Wake Forest team, so good job by Florida State. And then my last takeaway, which was really funny, was between the Air Force and Colorado State football game. The Air Force, like not fan, it was I guess it was Colorado State fans, and their team all got unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. So it's just one altogether for what? Throwing snowballs at the opponent at the ref. So funny.
That's
So
funny.
they initially blamed it on like the players on the sideline, which to me is even more funny. Like guys that aren't playing at all. Hey, at least we're balling up some snowballs and throwing them at referees and the other team. But later on in the game, they showed the student section for Colorado State, and it had been backed up, 30 rows where they couldn't throw and hit them anymore. I just thought that was really funny. And honestly,
That's pretty good.
we talked about like the matchups of week 9 weren't all that special, but man, the competition between the referees and the snowball throwers in Colorado State was funny in my opinion. So that's kind of the takeaways. I think there was outside of North Carolina losing again and Oklahoma losing Kansas to this Kansas team, just you never really count them out. But besides that, I think the college football landscape kind of played out as it was supposed to. So no real surprises outside of that. So
hmm Yeah, we did have USC almost lose a third consecutive game to California. They probably, I mean, I'm not going to say they probably should have, but I mean, they were in real danger of losing that game.
yeah,
And to echo a few things that you said, absolutely, we crushed our picks this week. And the reason we have to celebrate them when we do well is because so often we miss the mark. And so you have to celebrate the victories and then be held
yeah,
accountable for the misses. So, Oregon, that is the Oregon team that can win a national championship. I know Utah is limited offensively, but no one has done that to Utah all year. Even Oregon State, who beat them pretty soundly,
yeah,
that game was at home, and they did not have the control of the game like Oregon did. Bo Nix is the top 3 quarterback in the country right now. He's playing at an unreal level, and that defense, Graham, like you said, looked very, very impressive. So I think they're ascending. I think Georgia In Florida, the other note that I had on it was we talked in our preview show that Billy Napier had to be aggressive, but he couldn't be reckless. He apparently did not listen to Pigskin Cafe because he was reckless on Saturday with some of his fourth down decision making and game management, which I think is a big bugaboo for him, man. I think he's a good recruiter, maybe a good like culture builder, but some of the decisions he makes in game are baffling to me at times. So, wanted to point that out again. Georgia kind of rounding into form a little bit. They've got a big test this week, which we'll talk about. And I wanted to correct myself on the Kansas stat. They snapped an 18-game losing streak to the Oklahoma, which I think I said, but that is the highest ranked opponent that they have beaten since 2008 against Virginia Tech in the Orange Bowl. Impressive stuff. I mean, 15-year gap in beating that highly ranked of an opponent. So, again, shout out to Lance Leipold and that entire team there in Kansas. Now, Graham, let's move on. Let's flip the page. Let's go to week 10. And, brother, we have been circling this weekend for a while, and it is finally here. And I, for one, it's Tuesday, 7:13 p.m., but I'm already ready to go. I'm ready to go to sleep, then wake up, watch game day a little bit in the morning, the last 20 or 30 minutes, because heaven knows I cannot make it through 3 hours of game day anymore. But then from 11 a.m. to midnight, just watch incredible game after incredible game. First one we're going to start with is where game day is heading this weekend. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the battle of the SEC West. I truly believe whoever wins this game will end up in Atlanta. So, Graham, I'm going to start with you on this one. Obviously, this game is riddled with matchups. Alabama LSU is always a good game, other than maybe 2020 was like the only bad Alabama LSU game. 2020, 2018. Almost all the rest of them have been competitive, and they've always had stakes to them when it comes to who goes to Atlanta, who goes in the college football playoff. I want you to tell our audience what the key matchup that you're looking for. It can be Alabama's defense versus the LSU offense, the best on best units, or it can be the Alabama offense versus the LSU defense, both supposed weaknesses for each team. Who can exploit that matchup better, or is there a particular position group that you're looking at that you think can play a key factor in this game?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it is like both sides of the ball for both teams. It's like just two Rams, two Bulls just going head to head. Like who they're both just pushing each other, and who's just going to be able to take the other one down? Who's going to get the breakthrough and take control? I think when you look at it, LSU's offense, I think statistically is one of the best in the country, top five, I believe, if not at a minimum top 10. They can score. They can score points. Alabama's defense statistically one of the best, and it reminds us a lot of the Alabama of old in the sense of we're going to take control of the game. We're going to give our offense, a chance to win at the end, which is what you need for this one. And then on the other side, you have Alabama's offense, which has not been awful, but is really like it runs into itself a lot and becomes very stagnant at certain quarters, certain halves of the year, and
Mm-hmm.
then figure it out. Whereas this LSU defense has been abysmal. I mean, the whole season they've been giving up points, giving up yards. So I think when you look at that, it's an interesting matchup because it's a good offense versus a good defense. LSU good offense, Alabama good defense. Alabama bad offense, LSU bad defense. So it's like, how does that four square line up, and how does it calculate to the outcome of the game? I think to me, Alabama is benefiting from coming off a bye week, allowing them to have some prep for offense. I think that's going to be what uh, is going to control the game for Alabama. We expect the defense to be good against Tennessee. Alabama's defense came out a little bit not rusty, but they'd been planned against. for sure. Tennessee was able to exploit some matchups and
Mm-hmm.
at halftime. So I think that Alabama's defense, having a week to prepare, will maybe be a little bit better than the start of the Tennessee game. But you still don't know what LSU is going to throw at you coming into a competitive and who's going to win the West. When it's that caliber of a game. I mean, I think that it does we expect Jaden Daniels to play phenomenal for LSU and carry that offense. Does Milroe play half as good as Jaden Daniels? If he does that, Alabama can win. But if Jalen Daniels, Jade, okay, Jaden Daniels,
There
I get him in the Kansas quarterback.
you go.
Um,
Crosswired.
Yeah. Anyway, Jaden Daniels. If Milroe plays half of what Jaden Daniels does, Alabama will be okay. If Jaden Daniels shows that he's the best player in college football this season, then I think that Alabama could be in trouble because this LSU team can score points. And if it's going to be a boat race, I would probably favor LSU in
Mm-hmm.
that style of game. Because if there's going to be high scoring, yes, Alabama's defense can help you out some, but who do you trust more? Who's the best player on the field? And uh, whenever LSU is on offense, it's definitely going to be Jaden Daniels. So, I mean, to me, Alabama has a little bit of a slight edge. Very helpful that it is in Tuscaloosa, especially
Mm-hmm.
bye week, a little bit extra time to prepare, get rested, get healthy, get ready to go. And I think that will help Alabama's offense at least get something rolling to start off with, so it's not a 3-and-out. Maybe it's you know, you hate to say it's a success if you make it to the 50 and punt them deep. But honestly, to start
100%. Yeah.
Alabama, probably not a bad. Uh, that would probably not be the worst. That would be better than the worst case scenario. That'd actually be fairly good. Um, so yeah, I think that, and especially with LSU's last game, they were on bye week as well, but their last game was against Army, and they obviously boat raced Army, but a different team to prepare for than Alabama running the triple option compared to Alabama's new system with Tommy Rees. But yeah, LSU's has been known to score a lot of points. I think for Alabama, you have to get some turnovers. I think that's really going to be the key of the game. Is you know who's going to turn the ball over more? Will it be Jaden Daniels or will it be Milroe? And I think it's more of the sense of uh, Jaden Daniels has like twice his turnovers are only worth half of what Milroe's are. In the sense of Jaden Daniels might have 2 or 3 interceptions, but if Milroe has one at the wrong time, then Alabama could be in trouble. Alabama is favored by uh, 5.5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look. Just to confirm before we continue. No, Alabama's favored by 3. I'm sorry. Favored by
Oh,
3.
wow, it's dropped.
The over/under is 60.5. So, yeah, give me Alabama. I think by 6 to 10. I think it's one of those probably one score, maybe close to score games. But I think Alabama, um, controls it, especially in the end. I think that Jaden Daniels is a phenomenal player. But LSU really hasn't played much of a team. Let me phrase that. LSU has not played a team with the defensive caliber of Alabama so far this season. Florida State's probably close, and that did not go well. But the LSU team that played in Week 1 is definitely not the LSU team that has been playing the past few weeks. So, give me Alabama. I'm thinking that 6 to 10 point range. You know, Alabama plus the points, but still one of those close games where it could go down to the wire. Hampton, I know you've got a lot to break down with this one. I tried to keep it not as vague as possible, but I tried to set the table so that you could start carving up the turkey and
Oh,
feasting us for Thanksgiving.
wow. That's beautiful, Graham. That's beautiful. Great breakdown by you. I agree with much of what you've said or what you said in that diatribe that you had. Very good job. I think this is such a compelling matchup. Obviously, because these are two bitter rivals that have so much talent. And like I mentioned earlier, these games are pretty much always classics. I mean, the one last year, I mean, it wasn't classic for Alabama fans, but it was one of the better games of college football that year. 2019 is one of the better college football games I've ever seen. You have, I mean, just littered through the past 15 or 16 years, just gym after gym after gym. And with LSU's offense, I'm going to start with LSU's offense versus the Alabama defense because, like you mentioned, Graham, these are the best units for both teams. LSU's offense, to me, is the best in the country. Jaden Daniels has been, if they didn't have 2 losses right now, he would be number 1 in the Heisman for everybody. He's been probably the best quarterback this year. He's playing at another level, and he's got weapons around him with Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Kyron Lacey. You got Mason Taylor at tight end. You've got Aaron Anderson, the Alabama transfer, and then you've got Logan Diggs and John Emery at running back. They got a pretty good offensive line, too, and they can just attack you in multiple different ways because the difference in Daniels from last year to this year, last year he was still a very explosive and dangerous runner, but I don't think he had the confidence in the system in the passing game. Very reminiscent of when Joe Burrow first got to LSU. 2018, you saw flashes of greatness there, but it wasn't consistent. And when he had a whole nother year in the system, and obviously they went from, I think they went from Matt Canada to Joe Brady. I mean, that helped a huge deal, but also it's just another level of comfort. And I think you've seen that with Jaden Daniels. I mean, he is not only accurate down the field, throwing the ball vertically, but in the intermediate areas of the field, he's been really, really good. And he doesn't have a supposed weakness. And I think a lot of teams have been very hesitant to blitz or rush him because of his escapability, but also his ability to diagnose that a blitz is coming and throw the ball out quickly before you can get there and throwing it where the blitz is coming from, kind of, putting the ball where the void is. So he's taken his game to another level. He's been really impressive. But like you mentioned, Graham, I don't think they have seen anywhere close to a defense like they're going to see on Saturday. And while the Alabama defense, I think they're 17th in points allowed in the country, in my eyes, with the schedule they faced and with the inopportune situations that they've been put in over and over and over again by this offense, they're the best in the country. And they have been for most of the year. They were good against Texas, other than that fourth quarter where, again, they've been put in opportune situations all game long, and then finally the dam broke. And that is what cannot happen on Saturday. Alabama's offense cannot put this defense in bad situation after bad situation because eventually, no matter how good the defense is, against an offense of this caliber, you're going to have problems. It's just, in modern college football, that is how it is. But what is intriguing is obviously Alabama has a great pass rush. It's been one of the better ones in the country. Dallas Turner, Braswell, but also the interior pressure they've been able to generate with guys like Tim Keenan, Jaheim Otis, Justin Aboigbe, Jamarian Latham, even to name a few. I think being able to get to Jaden Daniels, make him uncomfortable, hit him early, I think that will pay dividends. What you can't let him do is just sit back there for 5 seconds at a time, let him survey the field, because their receivers are good enough to get open in under 3 seconds, let alone if you give them 5 to 6 to kind of freelance. And the thing is, Jaden Daniels is really good out of structure too. That's another thing that he's kind of added to his game this year. So Alabama's going to have to be very careful to, obviously you want to generate pressure on him, but also you can't lose contain and lose your pass rushing integrity, or he's going to scamper out and get 10 to 20 yard chunks at a time. So I'll be interested to see if Alabama chooses to spy him. I know they didn't last year, and it bit him in the butt, which a lot of that had to do with Deontay Lawson being hurt. But I think Alabama's linebackers are much improved from last year. I mean, I don't even think that is up for debate. So it's going to be a fun chess match to kind of see the adjustments that are made in game with how they defend Jane Daniels. I feel pretty good about Alabama's ability on the back end to match up with the LSU receivers. Obviously, they're going to win some matchups. They're going to win. They're going to generate yards and generate plays, but it's about limiting the explosives that really are backbreakers for your team and for your defense. One thing I'm really interested to see as well, Graham, because you mentioned it, they came out kind of slow against Tennessee. Part of that had to do with Tennessee breaking Tennessee a little bit. And really, they came out and they threw it 5 times on their opening drive when they had been a run-dominant, a run-heavy team. But the key is, unlike previous years, what Alabama did when they were playing that odd front and they were trying to really mitigate that Tennessee run, they adjusted. They adjusted and played more of their base defense that they had kind of played all year, more coverages that they were kind of, I would say, familiar with, and they stopped missing assignments, they stopped busting coverages because, as we talked about on that Tennessee pod, when Braswell was covering Squirrel White, obviously, a good job by Tennessee to get him out there, but there was a busted coverage there because someone was supposed to be over top of him.
Yeah.
So the adjustments that Kevin Steele makes in game have been probably the story of the year thus far, especially when, like I mentioned in our previous pods, he's held Ole Miss, A&M, and Tennessee to 6 points in 3 seconds halves combined, which is, 6 points in 90 minutes of football against top flight offenses is really impressive. So I would not be shocked if LSU starts out hot, but then as Alabama kind of gets the beat on what they're doing, what game plan they're employing, they do what they've done all year and they tighten that squeeze a little bit on that LSU offense, make a few adjustments, and really kind of slow them down as the game goes along. Now, let's switch to the Alabama offense versus that LSU defense. So, obviously, LSU has not been good on defense this year. They've actually been downright awful, and they're 86, I think, in the country overall right now. What's helping that ranking is them playing Army and then playing Auburn the past 2 weeks. That'll do a lot to boost your defensive statistics, but they're really bad against the run. And in the secondary, where they were already thin, and we talked about going into the year that was a problematic position group for them, they're going to be without Deuce Chestnut, Denver Harris, and Zai Alexander. They're going to be out without all of them for the game. So a thin secondary just got thinner, and Mekhi Wingo, a star defensive lineman for them, he is out for the game and is probably out for the remainder of the year. That is massive for, a defense that is already not good. Mekhi Wingo is a player for them. He's flashed in every game they've been in. He flashed against Florida State, and he is a really good run stopper for them, paired along with Mason Smith. So if I'm the Alabama offense, again, Alabama's offense has struggled this year. They've been very inconsistent, very feast or famine.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some decided advantages now. You can attack vertically down the field, which we all know is what Jalen Milroe thrives at. Just the chuck it deep offense. And so you're going to be able to exploit that, but now even more than you probably were before, I think you're going to be able to run the ball pretty well. Or you should be able to, with him kind of being, Mekhi Wingo being out of the mix a little bit, out of the fold. So, if I'm Alabama going in this game, I'm definitely leaning on the running game because you want to keep LSU's offense off the field. Especially with the new clock rules, you'll be able to kind of play a more ball control offense and really get 5 to 7 yard chunk gains, hopefully, to keep your offense on the field. Then mix that in with some of the things we saw against Tennessee, which was more of the QB run game if Jalen Milroe is willing and ready to do it. Also some of those jet motions that we saw with Kendrick Law, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw, Graham, in practice pictures from yesterday, Kendrick Law was lined up in the backfield with Jalen Milroe.
Hmm.
Maybe a little Debo type plays, little role he's carving out for himself. I think that can be a really fun package, and I think they can do a lot of innovative and creative stuff out of it. So, before the injury news, I was feeling a little more nervous about this game, especially with Alabama's inconsistencies on offense. And what they can't do is what they did in the first half against Tennessee. You cannot start off that slow, dig yourself a 13-point hole, and be like, all right, defense, shut them down in the second half. This offense is too good.
Yeah.
What I think we're going to see is probably more of the same of what we've seen all year. Very up and down, but I think a little more consistent than it has been. And if Alabama can sustain again, it's not going to be perfect all the time because this is just who this team is at this point in the year. But if you can sustain drives, not go 3 and out, and like what you talked about earlier, Graham, I know you were kind of half joking, but it was a great point. If you can get the ball to the 50, punt it, and pin them deep, play field position, that's a whole heck of a lot better than going 3 and out and your defense constantly being on the field. So I think there are matchups that Alabama can really take advantage of on offense through the air on that porous secondary, and they can run the ball really well, I think. I think they're going to have some success on the ground. The last thing that I'll mention before I kind of give my prediction, we kind of wrap it up, and I'll kick it back to you to see if you have anything else to add. LSU has not been great at rushing the passer this year. That is another big win for Alabama and their offensive line, who has struggled at times with protecting the quarterback. Now, like we've talked about on the show before, a lot of that has to do with left tackle being a freshman, but some of that has to do with Jalen Milroe holding on to the ball too long. So, Harold Perkins, they're going to probably try to line up in pass rushing situations on Caden Proctor. Alabama's going to have to combat that with either a tight end chipping, a running back chipping, something to throw off his timing a little bit so it's not just free reign at the quarterback. Something they did more so against Tennessee, and I thought they had a lot more success doing so. So overall, I think we're going to have a very close game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Going to come down to the fourth quarter, but in the end, I think Alabama, their defense gets enough stops because of the adjustments that they're going to make through the game. I think they are going to be able to contain the LSU passing attack enough. But I think the main difference, or the main key to this game, the Alabama offense, Jalen Milroe, Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Bond, taking advantage of the injuries that LSU has in that secondary, hitting enough explosive plays, and being able to run the ball at a consistent enough rate to keep the ball away from LSU offense and ultimately win this game. I'm going to go Alabama 34, LSU 28. So, Graham, you got anything else to add?
I don't know. I added a score prediction. I'm just kind of coming off the cup. I said it was going to be 6 to 10 points. So I'm going to go 41.
Ooh, 40. Like Alabama scoring 41?
I'm going to go 41-33. Alabama.
Okay.
I think that's.
I'd be ecstatic if we scored 41. Ecstatic.
Yeah, I think 41-33. And so because we both picked high scoring, it's going to be 10-7.
It's going to be a defensive slugfest. We're going back to 2011. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can't wait to watch this one on Saturday, 6:45. CBS, Uncle Gary, Uncle Brad on the call. Before this game, we have Mizzou versus Georgia. Graham, we have talked this game up for 2 or 3 weeks. Now it's time to break it down. We'll be quicker on this one than we were on the Alabama LSU game, obviously. But here's my question to you. Georgia coming off an impressive victory over a Florida team that I don't think either one of us think are very good.
Mhm.
I know we both think Mizzou is a legit football team.
Yeah.
Do they have a shot to go into Athens on Saturday and pull off this upset? And if so, what is the main key to the game?
I think Mizzou has a chance. Very, very slim. I think they have to walk. They have to walk a very, very tight rope in order to win this game. I think that in years past, Georgia has overlooked Missouri. They've overlooked Mizzou in the sense of it's usually the 11 a.m. kickoff or the 7:15 kickoff on the SEC network. Middle of the year, Missouri's 4-3 going into it, and it's a really tough game. But Georgia didn't point it out. Georgia's not going to be surprised by what Missouri has to offer this season. But what is the difference, and how does Missouri stand a chance in this game? It all stands and starts with the run game. Cody Schrader, I think, is the active leading rusher in Division One FBS. I think that they've got to get him going. They've got to set up Brady Cook and it's not Luther Burden. Yes, it is. Luther
Yeah, it
Burden.
is. You got it, buddy. Don't doubt yourself.
I get him and Dominic Lovett confused because Dominic Lovett was the Luther Burden. Then
Yeah.
So I think it starts with Schrader running the football. If Missouri can establish a respectable run game, I'm not saying they have to run for 250 yards. Respectable, where Georgia has to start bringing guys in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Those linebackers stay tight on play action. I think that opens them up for some deep shots for Luther Burden. And if we know anything about this Georgia defense, probably the weak point of it is probably the secondary.
Yep.
If you're able to run just enough to make them have to bring down some more guys, sets up some open balls for Brady Cook. I think that's the key to victory, and that gives them a chance. I think it also it has to turn out to Georgia's offense has to commit some turnovers. Missouri's going to have to they don't have to get lucky to win, but if they really want to stand a chance, their best chance of winning is getting lucky, getting some turnovers, and hoping that Georgia just is a little bit slow to respond. I think that Missouri come to this one. I'm not going to predict that Missouri's going to win the coin toss and take the opening kick. But if you're Missouri, you need the ball first. You need to put up 7. You need to show okay, we know what we're doing.
Apply game pressure early.
So I think Missouri can. I think Missouri can do that. I think my prediction for the game is that so far to start off, I think Missouri, regardless of whether Missouri wins coin toss or not, Missouri's going to get the ball first, and they're going to go up 7-0 on Georgia. Put the pressure on Georgia to respond. I think Georgia does, but I think this is going to be a really close game. Georgia's favored by 15.5, I think.
Really?
Yeah, and so
Okay.
let me find it. Make sure I'm right. Okay, where'd it go? Anyway, the last time I looked, it was Georgia by 15.5. Yep, Georgia by 15.5. I think that it's a 6 to 7 point game. I think that Georgia does enough to win, but it's close, and that's probably me, us just really pulling for Missouri because we predicted them to be the sleeper in the SEC East. They've proven us more right than we can even acknowledge.
That we can even fathom. Yeah.
How well they've done, but defense is underrated. Missouri's defense is underrated. I think this one's going to be a really, really fun matchup, and it's going to be the best game in the SEC East all year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Graham. Man, this one's tough. Because while you were talking, I was thinking to myself, Georgia has Mizzou this week, and then they host Ole Miss. And I thought, what team do I give the better shot of winning the game? Like winning a game in Athens. And I think it's Mizzou.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is I trust their defense more so than I trust Ole Miss's defense at this point. I know Ole Miss has had some improvement over the past 2 or 3 weeks. I get that. And again, if they have another performance like they've had and kind of keep building on Saturday versus A&M, then I may rethink that. But at this point, I think Mizzou, like you say, Graham, I think they have a legit shot in this game. Georgia, their defense is not what it has been in years past. We've talked about that ad nauseum on the show. I think with against Florida, you saw Florida have some success running on the edges. I think with a guy like Cody Schrader, and Mizzou's going to stay patient with that running game. I think they're going to be able to have some success run the football. Brady Cook is a mobile guy, and Brady had a little bit of an injury that hit him in the middle of the year. He had a bye to kind of fully kind of recover. So I think he's going to be a threat with his legs, and we've seen the type of passer he's been this year, throwing to not only Luther Burden, but there's another receiver that they have whose name escapes me, but he's been I think maybe Wingo is I may be totally wrong on that. If you don't mind fact checking me, Grant, that would be great.
Keep going on.
Um, yeah, I appreciate it. But they've had great success through the air. They're a really balanced football team, and I think they're the first team this year that Georgia's played that is going to be able to stress them both in the running game and in the passing game than any other team they played. So I think that in and of itself gives them a chance. And usually against a team like Georgia, against a team like Alabama, you've got to have a good quarterback to really compete and contend in a game like this. They got it in Brady Cook this year. On defense, we both said they're not a great unit, but they have been a pretty good unit this year. Their defensive line is solid, and they've got a few good corners, and I think they've improved as the year has gone on. So Georgia has really rounded into form on offense. I think Carson Beck has gotten a lot more comfortable, a lot more acclimated to Mike Bobo in that offense. Mike Bobo is probably more acclimated to Carson Beck. That happens as you get more reps, more game experience. They've been running the ball better. Their offensive line is gelled. Guys like Dominic Lovett, guys like Ra Thomas have become more of a factor. And so I think they're definitely going to be able to move the ball in Mizzou. And man, I want to take Mizzou so doggone badly. And I will be shocked, and I will come on this podcast next week if Georgia beats this team by like 21-28, and it's just a flat out butt whooping. I will be shocked, and I will give Georgia all the credit because I would like Florida again. We both said I think it'll be kind of close, but Georgia wins. But I wasn't shocked that Georgia blew them out. I would be shocked if they blew Mizzou out and nothing like funky out of the ordinary happened.
Yeah.
But in the end, with it being at home, it is hard for me to take Mizzou, even though I really, really want to. So I'm going to go Georgia. Similar to you, I think by a touchdown. I think it's close late, but I think they just kind of pull away, similar to what they did last year. But man, it's going to be a fun one. If Mizzou pulls this off, though, I mean, Drinkwitz Coach of the Year is in the bag
Yeah.
if he pulls this one off. Can't wait to watch it on Saturday. Any more thoughts on this game, Graham? Did you check? Hey, was I right? What's his name?
No, you were not right.
Dadgummit.
So the three receivers for um, Missouri are Luther Burden, Theo Weiss Jr., Mookie Cooper. Their tight end
Where'd I get Wingo from?
their tight end is Brett Norfleet. So not really close to anything, but I believe Theo Weiss was a 5-star recruit coming to high school, and this is on his second school in Missouri. I think from my perspective, Hampton, like like there were times earlier this year, like I said, my gut just told me, and I had to go with it. I feel like my appendix, something like my appendix, is like telling me that Missouri can win this one, but
Uh-huh.
Anybody that doesn't really do much, but it's like it might be there for a reason. But yeah, I think Georgia's gonna win this one. I think we're all hoping and praying that it's gonna be close, just for the like enjoyment of the game. I think that we would both be like disappointed if it's a blowout because A we
Mm-hmm.
and B it would not be any fun. But three team, I mean they've got a great kicker, a clutch kicker. So I mean they've
McThicker the kicker, Mr. Mevis. Yep.
they stand a chance, and against this Georgia team for the past few years, there's been very, very few teams that have even come into that argument.
Yep.
Credit to Drinkwitz for building a phenomenal team in Missouri, one that's really not getting enough credit. And man, I mean, you just look back; they were winning it against LSU and they lost it. What if Missouri was undefeated right now? How great a match! I mean, it's a great matchup anyway. How much better would a matchup would this be this year? This
Mm-hmm.
with undefeated Missouri and undefeated Georgia. We all can dream. We all can dream. But
Yep.
still think Georgia wins it. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
agreeing with you. I just don't really see. I don't really see a path where Georgia blows out Missouri. And if they do, we'll eat crow and we'll be okay with it. We
Mm-hmm.
we are confident enough to go with our guts, but we are not prideful enough to double down every single time we make a
Yeah.
bet.
Well, we'll eat crow, but I don't know about being okay with it. I'm not. I'm personally not going to be okay with it if we have to eat crow on that one. But last note before we kind of transition to a few more games, and then we're going to kind of go, a little rapid fire on these. But I think Mizzou believe like I know this is such a like Friday Night Lights cliche. Remember the Titans thing. Mizzou believes they can beat Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
They almost had them last year, but with how they have played up to this point, how they kept on improving, they believe that they can beat Georgia. And that's half the battle because a lot of these teams, when they go and play Georgia, obviously they lack talent, but they lack the belief. Drinkwitz and those boys believe. And so, going to be a compelling matchup on Saturday. Cannot wait to watch that one. Let's go to the Big 12 really quick, Graham. Kansas State is traveling to Texas, and they're taking on the Longhorns, who are going to have Malik Murphy again at quarterback. Is there an upset brewing here, or do you think Longhorns got it?
I was really on the Kansas State train early in the year. I really was. They just have a team that returned a lot of production from last year, and they play a very physical, style of football, which is obviously different than the typical Big 12 team. I just think Texas has just too many weapons. Malik Murphy looked a lot better than I think people expected him to. I would expect to see him be more prepared, more confident going into this week. And I can't remember Texas's running back's name, but
Reuben
he's
Owens?
Yeah, yeah.
Or,
Anyway,
no, that's A&M's guy. Um, it's Baxter?
I'll look. Hold up.
Hold on, I got you. I
No,
got you. Keep going.
Jonathan Brooks.
Brooks.
But
Yep.
at this point in the season, he's performing equally to what Bijan did last year. I think that their run game is more than sufficient. So I think Texas is going to take control of this one. And Texas is favored by 4. I think this is one of those Texas could win by 10, 14. Two-score games, but not one of those 50 to 35s, but more of the you know, you know 28-17 style games.
Mm-hmm. So a couple weeks back, Texas played Houston, and they squeaked out a victory. Squeaked it out. Kansas State played the same Houston team last week, and they won 41 to nothing.
Yeah.
With a backup quarterback, 11 o'clock kick. I'm going to go with the Wildcats on this one. I think they pull the upset. I think they get the job done, and I think it will knock Texas out of the college football playoff conversation. I kind of have a feeling. You talked about your appendix. My gut is telling me Kansas State is going to win this game, shock the world, and they've been a team who kind of like you said, they disappointed early, but they're kind of finding their legs. They're kind of finding their stride. Give me Kansas State to win this one. in a close one. Next game we got A&M traveling to Ole Miss. A&M coming off a pretty impressive victory against South Carolina, which I say impressive. I mean, South Carolina, bless their heart, they have fallen off a cliff. I mean, Thanos, the about as big of a cliff as Thanos pushed Gamora off of. Um, Hopefully you got that reference, Graham. You probably didn't, but but I mean, they are bad. They're injury riddled, but credit to A&M for taking care of business. Now they travel to Oxford. Lane Kiffin, Jimbo Fisher are star-crossed enemies. They hate each other. Kiffin was taking shots yesterday at Jimbo. Um, is there a potential for a look ahead for Ole Miss, looking ahead of that Georgia game and overlooking A&M? I personally don't think so. I think this game means a lot to that team. It means a lot to Lane Kiffin because he does not like Jimbo Fisher. They get the job done. They send A&M to 5-4, and Ole Miss goes into Georgia next week at 8-1 with a big opportunity in front of them. What do you think, Graham? Really quickly.
Yeah, A&M 0-2 on the road this year. Give me Ole Miss at home. 11 o'clock kickoff is the thing that's kind of getting just
Yeah,
kind of the what's kind of just
throwing you off.
yeah, kind of just going after me a little bit because A&M could come in prepared. Ole Miss could come in sleeping, but I think Ole Miss takes control of this one. Just has a little bit more firepower and has enough defense to force A&M to sustain long drives. So give me Ole Miss. Until A&M can prove they can win on the road, I will pick against them. Give me Ole Miss.
Yeah, and they're 0-2 on the road this year, but I think they haven't won a road game since 2021. I think they're 0-8 or 0-9 in
Yep.
their past few road games, which is pathetic. I think it continues. So I'm with you. Go Rebs. Now let's move to Bedlam, Oklahoma State. This game is in Stillwaters. Oklahoma coming off that loss to Kansas. Do they make it? Are they going streaking? Are they going to lose to Oklahoma State, or do they get back on track this weekend?
This one's tough. See,
And it's tough, yeah.
this is my gut right here, Hampton. This is my
Uh,
gut.
we move from the appendix to the gut, everyone.
But before we go anywhere else, I just want to have a moment of silence for Bedlam. So let's take a moment of silence for Bedlam.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
All right. I need to play Sarah McLaughlin, in that moment of silence.
Okay, Hampton. In that moment of silence, I was convicted.
Uh-oh.
Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State are winning this one. I think
Oh, my.
I think that they were mad when Oklahoma chose to go to the SEC, not because they were leaving them, but because they were choosing not to sustain a rivalry. I think that Oklahoma State's going to go out with a massive, massive punch. I expect Oklahoma to. Everybody expects Oklahoma to respond, but they played poor 2 weeks in a row. And what I know about you playing poor at home, losing to Kansas on the road in kind of a bad weather game. I think going to Stillwater, I think that's going to be that same style of environment, maybe even greater in the sense of the hatred for Oklahoma. Hampton, I mean, the gut's probably wrong, but it's more than 1 point, okay? And it has nothing to do with like the statistics of football. It is the gut's telling me to pick Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy being pissed off. So those two give me Oklahoma State at home. Oklahoma's favored by 5.5. Points don't matter in that one. Give me Oklahoma State.
I love it. Graham had a moment of silence and received a divine word to pick Oklahoma State. I love it. Yeah, I'm with you, Graham. This is always such a fun game. Last time Oklahoma traveled to Oklahoma State, they lost with Caleb Williams at quarterback. I'm going to go with you. I think Oklahoma State wins this game too, man. I think they win this game. They go out with a bang, pun intended, because of the Cowboys shoot. Mike Gundy is a man. He is now 50,
Yeah.
and he is not losing his final Bedlam game. I am 100% with you. I think we have a major shakeup in the Big 12. And what's crazy, if they win this one, they've got like UCF, Houston, and one other Big 12 team. They could be going to Dallas and playing in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
I mean, it sets up nicely for them because one of their losses was to South Alabama earlier in the year, which is inexplicable at this point.
Thing like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Give me the Cowboys. Let's freaking go. 2:30 game. Gonna have. I mean, my thumb's gonna be tired switching from this one and Georgia Mizzou. So go Oklahoma State. Let's move on to. I'm telling you, folks, we got so many good ones. Okay, final one. I think that we're gonna pick. Washington traveling to USC. Now, this one is very, very intriguing because I feel like Washington is begging, pleading to lose a game. They should have lost. I keep saying they should have lost. They should have lost. They came very close to losing against Arizona State. Stanford is a dropped fourth down conversion away from probably winning that game.
Yeah.
Their defense got absolutely torched by Stanford. They're going to USC, a team that is kind of in disarray right now. I really don't know where to land, but part of me believes that USC wins this game. Part of me believes they kind of rebound. Chaos is abound. They win this game. They hand Washington their first loss of the year. Graham, do you agree? Or do you think it's going to be Purple Rain in LA?
Hampton, I don't know if we ate the same supper or what, buddy, because my gut's telling me the same thing. Same thing on this one.
Mama Haney and Mama Sipper collaborated for that one, huh?
I know. I think that, yes, I think not that Washington is like bound to lose, but I think that Washington hasn't had this expectation since, what was it, 2016? Something like that. I guess
Yeah, with Jake Browning and crew. Yeah.
And so I think that Washington has been able to rely on momentum and arm talent from Michael Penix. But I think that USC is going to show Washington why they were selected first to go to the Big Ten. I think, to me, I think that this is where the Big Ten is going to start to line up in order, where USC is going to say, remember that you're following me, not the other way around. I think this one, USC returned home. Eked out. I mean, they barely won at Cal. I think this is just another reason that USC doesn't have much of a reason to win, but they know that if they lose to Washington, they'll definitely lose to Oregon. And then their season will be even more in ruins than it already is. I mean, I think this one's a close one, but USC at home just sounds good. It
sounds right, don't it? Yeah, I know.
2 weeks ago, I said that USC would rebound against Utah. They haven't rebounded yet. They're still recovering from that Notre Dame game. I think that Caleb Williams is going to shine so bright. I think he gets back in the conversation this week. Give me USC at home. Another one of those doesn't make sense, but the gut's just telling you, so you got to go with it.
I love it, Graham. I love it. Well, there's still some good games on the slate. Like Penn State, Maryland is a sneaky one to me. I can see Maryland pulling the upset there because of how awful Penn State has looked the past couple weeks. You got Arkansas, Florida. I can't wait to watch that one. I was hoping you would catch that. That will not be one that I tune into this weekend, but I mean, it's going to be. This is like an all-timer college football weekend. So, go ahead. What you got?
We don't have to pick it. Also, Notre Dame and Clemson is so appealing simply because
sneaky,
so fired up right now. And if they lose this one, they're 4-5. They're under 500, which I don't know if Dabo has ever been under 500. If he has been, it's been his first, one of his
second year. Yeah,
Clemson. So that's been such a long time ago. To me, that one's also just an interesting take to watch. And see how he responds.
Yeah, well, I kind of hope they do lose. So Tyler from Spartanburg calls in again and gets that whole piece of his mind. I mean, that whole 5 minute clip was just absolutely astonishing and outstanding at the same time.
Yeah.
So I agree, Graham. I think it's a really intriguing game. I mean, Clemson got smacked by an NC State team that they're all right.
It's
They ain't
basketball
a
school.
basketball school. A basketball school. Don't kill us, Dave Doran. We love you. But I mean, if they, like you said, if they go 4-5, which I think they are, I think Notre Dame beats them. Man, oh man, it's going to get even rougher in Clemson, South Carolina. But we will have a ton to recap next week, and man, I cannot wait to sit down on Saturday, like I said, watch all these games, and then gather up with you all, talk a little college football, and that show should come out next Tuesday. But again, Graham, thank you for joining me tonight. What a pleasure talking college football with you. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, leave a comment with what you are looking forward to most in Week 10 in college football, and follow us on social media. The Pigskin Cafe will be closed for now, but until next Tuesday, chew on that. Everybody enjoy a wonderful college football weekend.